Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hello there. Welcome to the program. Let's see. It's July 27th. Imagine that. I'm thinking, God, the summer's going so fast. And I also was thinking, don't say it. And I did. Oh, how you doing? Mm-hmm. You know, I am trying. I'm continuing much to my astonishment, my fiddling around in my learning algebra book. And I am abysmal. I mean, maybe there really is an inability in my head to do this. I don't know. But it turns out I'm going to have to drop back and go back to like basic arithmetic stuff. I think I actually forgot how to, because when you start doing the algebra stuff, very basic algebra stuff, you realize that you have to, be able to divide, multiply, subtract, all that kind of stuff. And I couldn't remember how to, when faced with like 7/9 times 4/5. I couldn't remember what you did. I thought, do I have to have a common? I don't even know what the names are. Do you multiply that like crisscrossy way or straight across? I literally do not remember basic math. Now, you could argue I've made it to my old age with whatever mathematical skills I have, and I'm okay. But it'd be better if I could, if I could remember that. It's amazing what our heads remember and don't. God, that whole part of me that's just like, duh, not a clue. I was talking to my son the other day, and I used the word supplant. I said, I can't even remember the sentence, but I said something about supplant. And he gave me a look because he'd never, I guess, heard that word. And he said, what? He got very annoyed. I mean, what is that? What does that mean? And why do you have to use? And this is something that happens to me. The part of my head that's always worked well is that more word-oriented, stuff having to do with letters, not numbers. And I do remember those things. And I do have all these words in my head that stay there, even if I only use them once every 25, 30 years. Like, I don't think I've said supplant in ages. And then to say it and get that nasty reception about it, I think, it'll probably get supplanted by some other word. I remember then finding an immediate adjective a synonym for him. What did I say? Overwhelm, overcome, substitute for. I can't remember. Geez. Supplant. I feel for, so many things going extinct. I came across a page yesterday with pictures of all these amazing animals on it, birds, fish, this, that, and it had said somehow next up for extinction. Like these guys, I was looking at pictures of living beings that were going to cease to live. And it just breaks my heart. But obviously it's happening at an extraordinary rate, and also is happening with the language. There was a piece today about American Sign Language changing. And I was blown away to see in the piece, I mean, how many people do you think use American Sign Language? I mean, how many people that is their form of communication in the United States? How many? Well, I was shocked because it's only 500,000. And I thought for sure it'd be bigger than that. I don't know why I thought that, but I did. But anyway, their language changes, of course, too. I mean, just stop and think of how you would sign the word telephone. Because back when American Sign Language was young, the telephone was something that required two hands. So you would hold that. You would hold that's not the receiver, the base in your hand, and then you would hold the earpiece to your ear. So that would be the way you would say telephone. Now you see people doing telephone now, with that, their finger up against their ear. But that is changed now because that up against your ear thing looks as if it's an old telephone, right? And we don't hold, that's not the way our hands look against our ear when you're, whatever, anyway, I'm just saying. Things change. That's the one thing I know. Milton just sent me something, and since Milton sends me really good stuff, I'm going right to it. Yes. Milton, how'd you know? Actually, even more than supplant and others and my algebra skills, I did. This is exactly the story I told myself I was going to start with today. So thank you for pulling me back. He has sent me a Washington Post piece, headline, Justice Department investigating Trump's actions in January 6th criminal probe. So we now know all of that squawking and screaming of when's Merrick Garland going to... He's been quietly, as is his habit, doing his business, and his business is starting to proceed. There was this little thing, I think a day or two ago, about how Mark Short, who was Mike Pence's chief of staff, and also Mike Pence's chief counsel, had both testified before the grand jury, the federal grand jury that is investigating what the hell happened on January 6th. Now, those are guys with very intimate knowledge. Those are guys who were, in many instances, inside the White House or with the vice president. So those who said it wasn't going to happen, he's investigating. And I was reminded of something. Merrick Garland is a dogged, quiet, old school investigator, and he doesn't move until he knows he's got something watertight. But that's why, believe it or not, he has a record that is unbelievable as a prosecutor. 100% conviction rate. So when he moves on somebody, well, let's put it this way. You wouldn't want him coming after you if you had, in fact, done something wrong. The reality is the Department of Justice has seated a grand jury. I don't know if it technically seats it. A grand jury has been seated, And they are calling witnesses that are people who have direct knowledge of what happened on January 6th. So, and here's something else to remember. Federal grand juries, that's what this is. Federal grand juries almost never do not indict. If they're seated and they hear testimony, and granted, grand juries hear very one-sided testimony, they indict. Almost 98% of the time, in fact. And obviously the initial, so indictments will be coming, and they will come first for lower level. But that's the way this stuff always happens. Lower level guys trying to save their own hides turn for the prosecution, and little by little you start pulling down higher people. It's the only way they'd ever get to Trump. It would be astonishing if they do, but I don't think there's anyone who's got two brain cells left in their head that doesn't know that Donald Trump has committed numerous felonies of the worst sort. Attempt to overthrow the government of the United States would be right there up at the top. So the Wall Street Journal article flat out says, here's its lead, the Justice Department is investigating President Donald Trump's actions as part of its criminal probe of efforts to overturn the 2020 election. So the tight lips that have been around the Justice Department's maneuvers up till now have started to loosen a little bit, obviously, if only to assuage the clamor of people demanding that they do something. And there's been a lot of new stuff out about emails that they have about the effort to put in these phony electors, and amongst themselves, state to state, talking about how they're trying to do it. And one guy kept calling the electors that they were trying to put in the fake electors. He was just acknowledging our guys are fake. And someone emailed back to him at one point, perhaps it would be better to use the word alternate. And I think they said like LOL, ha, ha, ha. So, I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting from here on out. It's going to be really interesting. And Milton, I thank you for saying that. Barbara says, do you know this word? What is it? What? Omni-ecophagic. Omni-ecophagic. I don't know how to pronounce it. Here it is used in a sentence. Well, I mean, omni would be, wait here. The human species, it says here, is a rapacious, I agree with that, predatory, I agree with that, omnicophagic species. I probably agree with that too, if I knew what it meant. Engaged in a global pattern of converting all available plant, animal, organic, and inorganic matter into either human biomass or into adaptive adjuncts of human. Okay, essentially what they're saying Okay, what does it mean? Destroyer of all? Or it means we take anything that is alive in our sphere, we incorporate, we eat it, we burn it, we destroy it, we do whatever but what does it mean exactly? I don't know. I don't have time to look it up. Someone's going to have to. Omni, ECOPHAGIC, ecophagic. What the fuck? Remember back when you said you heard somebody was taking Latin in high school? I'm sure they don't even do that anymore. And you said, why the hell would anybody learn? Well, you understand when you get interested in words exactly why you would learn Latin or Greek, and how if you did, you would be so much more erudite. There's a word, if I used it correctly. Okay, we got lots of words to look up. Margaret says maybe it's good that Garland didn't go to the Supreme Court. Oh, you're saying, yeah, maybe the fact that he's not on the Supreme Court, but that allowed him to be in this position at this time. No, we'll see. I wouldn't get ahead of ourselves there. Here's my worry. And well, I've said this before. Okay, so we get Trump, and we gotta. He's already wounded. He's terribly wounded. Republicans are clearly the ones that, the cynical ones who know he's a horse's ass and has damaged the party, but have gone along publicly with him for their own asses. Those guys are seeing now an opportunity to take him out. Rupert Murdoch being one, and he's playing both sides against the middle. His newspapers, Wall Street Journal, New York Post, are essentially saying he should never. I think they are flat out saying he should not be allowed to be president again. So you got Murdoch's newspaper saying that, but he's making way too much money to let Fox News go that way yet. So he's going to draw in some people with keeping Fox News Trumpian and start pulling away on his with his newspaper. But eventually, Murdoch will attempt to join the people trying to save the Republican Party. And all I can see is that the wounding of Trump means, I'm going to be using it again, that he will be supplanted by something which may prove to be even worse. And that would be Governor DeSantis. It's quite clear that that's what they're doing, I think. They see a winner in DeSantis. They see a loser in Trump. And our side is helping make him a loser. But I don't see what choice we have. But man, we better get ready for DeSantis, because he's the guy. He's the one. I'm telling you right now. What do I have here? Paul Krugman wrote a piece, I think yesterday, I don't know, in which he tried to sort of unravel the thing that makes my head explode every time I listen to Republicans, especially Republican candidates speaking of Democrats and of who we are and of where we live and what we want, because what they're speaking, again, as so often is the case, bears no resemblance to reality. None. It's like my head starts exploding. I think, what are they talking about? One of the things that I always see is they just rewrite, history that we all observed. And I'm not even talking about January 6th. I'm talking about Black Lives Matter. Think of that do you remember Black Lives Matter? That movement, this spontaneous grassroots movement in the wake of George Floyd's public murder, was astonishing in the force with which so many people who had never been in the streets before came out. And I mentioned once of how I joined, because I could hear them coming in my neighborhood. I joined with my dog one such march. And it was mostly young people, black and white, brown. And I was blown away because I have done lots of marches back in the 60s, 70s, 80s. And they were incredibly organized. The leaders, you could tell, there were people managing the marchers. There were people reminding them to obey the law at all times. They stopped for a while in a little park and certain speakers spoke. And then when they got up to start marching again, they were told, do not leave anything that would be trash behind. In fact, if you see trash, pick it up. We're leaving this place cleaner than when we got here. I was blown away. Tell that to a Kenny Chesney concert goer. And the whole time I was with them, that was the kind of discipline, control, just impressive as hell. But if you listen to Republicans talk about Black Lives Matter, they talk about riots and burning and mayhem and murderous rampages and looting. And let me tell you something. That, if those things did happen, they constitute not even 1% of all of those demonstrations. The one I experienced was the norm. In some cases, police, by their actions, created situations that resulted in a level of violence or mayhem. But that was not what those marchers were about. And so, if you listen to them, they are all living in some hellhole where people are being picked off one by one. I would tell them, no. You're thinking of elementary schools. That's where people, little ones, are being picked off one by one. And I am so sick of people saying that we do not understand the Trump voters. My God, how many times have I tried to? Because there's pieces written all the time about who they are, how they've been left behind, how they're angry. It's not my problem that they don't know how to direct their anger at the right target. I'm not saying they don't have a right to be angry about a lot of stuff, because I'm angry about a lot of stuff too, but they are mixed up about who is responsible. And unbelievably, they turn to the very party that is most responsible in their lives being worse? The ones who do nothing, the Republicans, the ones who do nothing but try to enrich the rich and to screw regular working folks. Jesus. Anyway, Krugman said, I'm so sick of this that we don't understand them. Fine. And I know that's true. A lot of our side is contemptuous to the point of, refusing to in any way have a measure of empathy for people who have fallen for the Republicans' crap. But he points out that their misconceptions about us are even more mammoth. And he talks specifically about the Black Lives Matter. You talk to them, and they talk about, again, looting, burning cities, American cities destroyed. What are they thinking of? Are they thinking of like newsreels from 1968 after Martin Luther King's assassination? I don't know what they're thinking of. And then they talk about all this violence happening in the country. Most of the violence can be laid at the feet of all extremist-related violence. It's not coming from our side. It's not. 4%. The Anti-Defamation League looked at all of what you could call extremist-related domestic killings in a period from 2012 right up until 21. And here's what they found. You could lay the blame of 4% of that extremist violence on the left. 4%. On the other hand, 75% were right wing. And yet, the Republican base has it turned around. Try telling them the Black Lives Matter protests were overwhelmingly peaceful. I give up. When people are willfully stupid, or it's not stupid, it's willfully blind, I don't know what you can do. I read the greatest story today in the New York Times. And guys, I got to share it with you. And it is... Wait, before I do, because once I do, this could, take up the rest of the show. Wait, I got one more question. I just saw that I'd written this down. Question! Something else that is going to go away, like all the life, botanical and otherwise, that Homo sapiens is busily destroying. One of the sort of signature international accomplishments in my lifetime, where countries who, to say the least, did not see eye to eye, agreed for the betterment of all that they would cooperate. And that is the International Space Station. And that has been, and it has blown me away the whole time it's been up there, that Americans, right even now, Americans, get on Russian rockets and up they go, and they work alongside Russian cosmonauts, and they're all, and even now, with all of the hell going on between Russia and the United States, somehow above it all, metaphorically and literally, that cooperation continued. but it too is on death's door. So here's my question. Okay, so it's going to be abandoned. That huge thing floating around up there. How huge? Checked it out. Hang on. Come on, Cullen, find it. For God's sake, stop it. Do you know how sick people are of listening to you do this? Okay. It is. Okay, it's the size of a football field. So imagine, I almost said Heinz. Imagine Acrisure. Is it field or park? Imagine Acrisure Park. Okay, so that is how big this thing is that we made with the Russians. And it's up there right above us now. And there's people in it still now. What does it weigh? It weighs almost 1 million pounds. What goes up must come down. That's all I want to say. And we know that stuff that's up there eventually comes down. Here's my question. What are we going to do about that big thing? Because you don't want a 1 million pound football stadium falling on your head. So I don't know. Are they going to have to destroy it in little pieces? I can't figure it out. I'm just saying. Okay, I've got 2 callers, I'm being told. Okay, well, let's get the callers in. I got to get to this other story. But go ahead, caller. Hello.
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 Yes. Hey, I'll make it quick. You were talking about that with the people who vote Republican. I tell you what I really think it is. I know you've said this on the show probably before. I think it's just racism. I really believe that because everybody I've known that's voted that way always had a thing against blacks. And I just think they think that the Democrats give too much to the black people. And that's just what it is. And it's just the racist. Republicans are just racist. Everyone I've ever met has a tinge. You could tell the way they talk and that. It's just racism, and that's what it is. And a lot of them don't like women or black women. They figure that's why we'll get rid of abortion because most black women get it. Well, that's not true. We know that, but it's racism, and that's what it is. I really believe that's what it is.
No, I don't. I do. Listen, I just want to. Wait. I don't disagree with you, but here's what I want to add. Don't let Democrats off the hook.
Well,
when it comes to racism, do not. No, Democrats just tend to be less overt. But I got news for you. I think racism knows no party, although Republicans traffic in it. I mean, they traffic in it. And they make money off it. And they get elected on it. And another piece that I'd really like to talk about sometime if I get around to it is one that I have in front of me here. And it's titled, Why Can't We Have Nice Things? And what the nice things they're talking about is what other countries have, like child care and parental leave and all that. So why can't we have a government that takes our money and then gives it back to us as a safety net? Because we're an outlier on this, health care, all of it. And the answer is racism. The answer is what you said. The answer is that there's a whole huge hunk of white America that has always opposed government giving as they see it, nice things to people because they don't want black people getting them.
Right.
So they're willing to go without themselves. Just keep those black people from getting them. So racism is just, it's endemic. It's in the blood. It's in our soil, and a huge bunch of Americans seem incapable of acknowledging that. I mean, you just have to look at what the Republicans are doing now by banning books, screwing with school curricula, so that critical race theory, which means acknowledging what we're talking about right now, racism in America, cannot be taught. It's mind-boggling. You know, you're absolutely right. I just say, don't totally say it's just Republicans. It's America.
Well,
it's America.
About it. Yeah, it's America.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Appreciate it. Bye.
Bye.
Got another caller? Hello?
Hey, Lynn, it's Mary on the South Side.
Hi, Mary. How's the South Side?
I'm going to go one further for you. It's not only just racism. It's people just want to keep women down. If men had to be responsible for daycare, I think we'd have subsidized daycare, you know? I mean, have some men start watching their kids, and let's see how that goes.
Yeah.
But anyway, two things I want to say about how Pennsylvania is a steaming pile of shit state. First of all, Congressman Glenn Thompson from like north of here.
Yeah, I talked about him yesterday. He's a piece of work, huh?
Okay.
I did. This is a guy.
Wedding. To show up at that wedding, I mean,
no, he first votes to not codify in federal law that same-sex couples have the right to marry. He says, no, I ain't voting for that. Right. And then he goes off to his son's gay wedding.
Yeah, I want to be there next Thanksgiving. Let's hear that conversation.
God almighty. Okay. What's the other one?
Two, I always knew we had the lottery and scratch offs and all of that. You know, I don't really pay too much attention to it. But my friend got me some scratch offs, so I did them, and of course I lost. But I wasn't sure I lost, so they have a little barcode you can sign up and scan with your phone to confirm you lost. You know, so I do that, and I knew you could buy lottery tickets, and I knew you could play those online. You know, but they are now sending me emails because I had to enter my email to do this, offering me match play. If I spend $50 on the lottery or the scratch offs, they will match it $50. They will give me another $50. Now
so in other words, my tax dollars are trying to shake down and entice my fellow Pennsylvanians to give the state more of their money on a fool's bet, huh?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Sickening.
Yeah, and it's not like even $10.
Sickening.
$50.
No, 50. Yeah.
I was like shocked when I got that email. I'm like, oh my God. Anyway, that's my complaints of the day.
Well, it's a good one. How's the South Side treating you?
The South Side is good. Someone is stealing umbrellas from one of the restaurants, and we figure out who's doing it. But you know.
Has anyone seen Mary Poppins around? I don't know. Stealing umbrellas.
It's a welcome controversy after the past few weeks.
Yeah, it is. Hey, thanks, Mary.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, guys. No more calls because I got to do this story. It's in today's New York Times. It's just wondrous. It's baseball related, but don't worry, you don't have to be a sports fan. How many baseballs do you think are used in one baseball game? We're talking Major League Baseball. In the average game, I got to tell you, about 150 balls are used. And every one of those balls has been through a ritual of sorts that I did not realize happened. I did not. And it involves mud. When I think of a baseball, basically, they're white with red stitching, right? I'm looking at a bucket of mud from an undisclosed location somewhere on the Delaware River, where every major league baseball ever used has been rubbed in prior to the game. Back in the day, and I mean way back in the day, pitchers used to spit tobacco or rub some of the dirt from the infield into the ball. And that was to give it a grip, because the ball left unattended is slippery. It's that white, nice, slippery stuff. And pitchers don't like slippery. They lose control. And so balls have to be tempered in a certain way. The funny thing is that baseball, which has more rules than it turns out that baseball has very specific things. First of all the mud comes from one spot, as I said, one spot, and one man who goes in his pickup truck with a shovel and shovels it and then sort of cures it in his garage somewhere in New Jersey. And then he ships it off to Major League Baseball. This is not a big money maker for him. But baseball requires it. Now, baseball, I'm going to read here from this piece goes on and on. To protect baseball's honor, Major League Baseball has taken several steps, including cracking down on the doctoring of balls, right? You know, like with glue or something that would allow a pitcher to increase the spin rate. And this mud has been the thing that has been sanctioned by Major League Baseball for, and I'm sorry, I'd have to lose track of where I am, for like 50, 60, 70, 80 years. I can't remember exactly. Going way, way back. This same Delaware River mud undisclosed location. So Major League Baseball getting nervous about the fact that in this era where they use all kinds of algorithms to decide what the next play is, what player should do what, how, I mean, you know how things are now. The fact that they are relying on mud, they began to worry that each team and the person on each team who rubbed the balls in the mud prior to the game might not be doing the exact same thing. So Major League Baseball started an investigation. And to start it, they asked all 30 Major League Baseball teams to send headquarters videos of their clubhouse employees doing what they do to the balls with the mud. And the spokesman for Major League Baseball said, you know what we found out? 30 different ways of applying the mud. Some guys were just using a towel. Other guys were really rubbing it in, getting it ingrained. And so Major League Baseball, God knows how many meetings were held before a memorandum was drawn up. And they codified the regulations now for the, quote, storage and handling of baseballs. I will read part of it to you. All baseballs projected to be used in a specific game must be mudded within 3 hours of all other baseballs being used in that game. and must be mudded on the same day that they are going to be used. Baseballs should not be out of the humidor for more than 2 hours at any point prior to first pitch. Rubbing mud should be applied to rubbing mud. Oh, it's an adjective. Rubbing mud should be applied to each baseball for at least 30 seconds, ensuring that mud is rubbed thoroughly and consistently into the entire leather surface of the ball. The memo further insisted that a poster titled Mudding Application Standards be on display in every clubhouse to ensure that the color of the mudded ball is neither too dark nor too light. Now, it turns out that 3 teams, the Yankees, the Phillies, the Washington, what are they called? Nationals, right? Refused to allow a New York Times reporter to watch their clubhouse employee engage in this incredibly important task. So the guy who does this, who finds it, is a guy named Jim Bintliff. And he ended up doing this because, well, he's a Bintliff. It first started with a guy named Lena, I know it doesn't sound like a guy, Blackburn, because this mud is called Lena Blackburn baseball rubbing mud. And I got to tell you, the major leagues have tried to break away from this friggin' rubbing mud from Delaware and this guy's because it just seems stupid. And so they actually employed chemists and researchers to create essentially a mud of their own that they would be able to produce and know that it was a constant composition. And then they would make something up and send it around to the clubs, and the clubs always said the same. They keep saying the same thing. Nope, that's no good. So every effort by Major League Baseball to come up with a substitute that, as I said, chemists, engineers have worked on has gone for naught. Here again, the spokesman for Major League Baseball, when they went with some of the balls that the chemists came up with. You sacrifice something. The sound of the bat was different. The ball felt, softer. It's an ongoing project. So they're still working at it. And they're trying to get rid of this Bintliff guy in New Jersey. So this all started with a guy named Russell Blackburn, who for some reason it was called Lena. And he was a major leaguer in the 1910s. So he's the one who first found this spot in the Delaware River and said to his pals, Ty Cobb, Connie Mack, hey, this is it. This is what we rub the balls in. And that gave him a side job. He ended up being a coach. And after a while, every team was using what they called Mississippi mud. It wasn't Mississippi mud. And right before he died in 1981, in 1968, I'll get it, 1968, he told an old friend about the secret spot and how to do it. And that old friend was the current guy. This was Blintliff's grandfather. He then left it to Blintliff's mother. And in 2000, when she passed on, she passed it on to Blintliff, who was a printing press operator. But he'd always watched his mom, his dad, his grandparents. He knew all about it. And so he has taken over since 2000. You know what he makes for Major League Baseball for shipping them this mud every year? $20,000. That's it. If a team needs any more during the season, he deals directly with the team, sends them a little bit more. He said, it's not the money. It's, God knows, not the money that I'm doing this for. It's the amazing fact that this mud I dig out of this secret spot contains some very particular mineral composition, is used in every Major League Baseball game and has been his entire life. Well, you got Major League Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred now. He's trying to make baseball consistent. No variables. Because these variables can get you in trouble and people can say, well, they had an advantage or this one had an advantage. I mean, baseballs are like snowflakes. They behave differently depending on the local environment. Baseball has tried to ensure that every baseball used in the game is stored in a humidor at 70 degrees Fahrenheit and 57% humidity. Now, the Colorado Rockies got a little bit of an asterisk because of their higher altitude. Their humidity in their humidor is set at 65%, a little bit higher. And this is all to make baseball absolutely uniform. So, I don't know about you. I mean, I've always seen players, doing stuff with the ball. We know all about pitchers doing stuff with the ball. What I did not know was there's this guy, and I'm looking at a picture of him now, knee deep in some muddy river, scooping mud, and it is mud, scooping mud, black mud, into an old bucket. And to think that American baseball could not go on without it is amazing. The guy who wrote this piece is a great writer, Dan Barry. And he says, tubs of this mud are found at every major league ballpark. And consider what it means. That Major League Baseball, a multi-billion dollar enterprise that applies science and analytics to nearly every aspect of the game, ultimately depends on some geographically specific muck collected by a retiree with a gray ponytail, blurry arm tattoos, and a flat-edged shovel. So, I love that. I love that. I learned something new, and I wanted to share it with you. If you'd already read the article, I'm really sorry. And I wanted to I have this great obit. It'll have to, Milton sent me 2 great obits. I'm choosing one of them. And that is going to take some doing too. Marvelous human being, woman, tough cookie, who you never heard of. But you will tomorrow. Beth writes, I agree with you that DeSantis will be the nominee. Oh, God, oh, God, oh, God. Here is my guess. Right now, the party and Trump are working out a financial arrangement to keep him from running. Well, you know what? I hadn't thought of that, Beth, but that does make some sense, seeing as he's always in it for the money. He's always grifting. And this could be the ultimate. I mean, oh, God. I don't know if his ego will let him. She goes on. My guess is Trump went to Florida post-White House to have a favorable governor who would protect him against extradition to another state. Wait a minute. Really? I don't know enough about those laws. So you're saying that Georgia indicts him, that DeSantis could possibly protect him, and by protecting him, supplant him. I'm using supplant again. Beth goes on to say, I know that Cruz and Hawley and Nikki Haley will be in the vice president chat, but I would put my money on Pompeo. He's lost a bunch of weight. That's the first thing you got to do, unless you're Trump. He's lost a bunch of weight. We know the donors that back McConnell love Pompeo. So you're saying it's a DeSantis-Pompeo ticket. Well, they don't have to have a woman in this day and age, an anti-abortion woman. Also, if the vote's too close to call in Florida, you know where those votes are going with DeSantis as governor. I dread 2024. It might be what starts the next civil war. Well, if it starts in Florida, that does have some sort of, makes some sense, doesn't it? Anyway, I think I'm done. I didn't get to half of the stuff I wanted, and I opted to spend all that time on mud, and I'm sorry about that. I mean, I don't think I told the story as well as I should have just read what Barry wrote to you. Anyway, that's it for me, and I'll be back tomorrow because I don't have anything else to do. Have a good one.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.